Okay, so what is Ayurveda?
So Ayurveda is a philosophy from India, originating about 5,000 years ago. And it's really all about how we maintain one simple thing, which is balance.
Okay.
So it's balance of our mind through the practice of meditation,
Okay.
balance of our physical body through the practice of yoga,
Okay.
and balance of our health through the practice of Ayurvedic foods and herbs in our cooking and in what we eat. And so Ayurveda says that if we can manage to find a balance of all these three aspects, which encompass us as a person and a soul, then we will maintain good health and well-being.
Okay.
So well-being kind of comes from Ayurvedic practice.
Okay.
And it's very much a preventative version of health and well-being versus the westernized approach, which is treatment-based. You know, you get sick, you go to the doctors, you get prescribed some kind of steroid or antibiotic, never really understanding what the core of the issue was. Symptoms go away, and there you go. You can go about your daily life. So it's very much a difference between Eastern medicine and Western medicine in the core value that they have of how they look at health and well-being. That is Ayurveda. Really.
So is it fair to say that if somebody is thinking about how they achieve optimum well-being, that Ayurveda that idea of balance would sort of help them in that objective?
Yes, absolutely. And that's actually where the doshas come in. Doshas are a really fascinating concept, and to really understand them, we need to understand where they come from. So, Ayurveda explains that the whole world, who we are, the atmosphere around us, everything is created from the base of the 5 elements. So, ether, air, water, fire, and earth. And so these are the 5 elements that created, they created the world, they created nature, they created the plants that we see around us, the herbs that you see around us, and therefore they created us as well. You think about, you know, history of time, going back through times of evolution and what really began, you know, with these 5 elements, there would be none of this. And so Ayurveda says that we have these 5 elements within us, but at varying levels of dominance.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
actually.
you know. Yeah. So if you've heard the term, you know, that person is a very fiery character, or that person has their feet on the ground, or that person has their head in the clouds. You know, it's interesting how we use this terminology without realizing. But what we're really trying to say is, what are the imbalances of this person? This person is very, very air. They've got an abundance of air, or they've got an abundance of that ground, or they've got an abundance of fire and heat inside them. And so the idea of those 5 elements is where then the doshas comes into play, because your dosha really determines which of these 5 elements are most dominant in you and are your out of balance quality. So you have the 3 dosha types. So let's start with the Vatas. So the Vatas are represented by air and ether. So if you think they're kind of here, very much here in the air and in space. And so Vatas are so you have these qualities of imbalance and out of balance qualities. So when a Vata is in balance, they're very creative, they're very social. You find a lot of Vatas in the kind of industry that we're in, especially in media and in journalism. You know, very creative people. So Vatas are very fast. They're quick-paced. If you imagine air dominates them, so they're very fast-thinking as well. And also, in terms of skin, because they're very air dominant, their skin tends to get very dry and very dull. because air dominates, and so they suffer from things like dehydration. When out of balance, Vatas can be quite disorganized. They can be very cold, very, very cold. So they have cold hands, cold feet all the time. Very, very typical Vata characteristic. And they can be, they can't sleep very well, because if you imagine the Vatas are kind of constantly thinking and their mind is on overdrive. They've got loads of things going on at once. They're very creative, very fast, and so they tend to not sleep very well. So for Vatas, it's really recommended to meditate, especially before bed, to help kind of relax their mind. It's recommended for Vatas to eat warming foods, kind of soupy foods, because they don't have very good digestion. So anything to help detract from air and coldness, so anything warm and spicy is really good for them. So that's the Vata characteristic.
Okay.
Then you've got Kaphas. So Kaphas are represented by mainly by earth, and also by water. So Kaphas tend to be very grounded individuals, very loving, very kind-hearted. I can always tell a Kapha in the eyes. I always think Kaphas, you know, that person who just can't hurt a fly. You know, they have so much good inside them. They're very kind and they're very loyal and they're very kind of grounded individuals. When in balance. When out of balance, Kaphas can get a little bit slow and sluggish, because if you imagine this earth is kind of pulling them down when out of balance. So they can get a bit slow, they can get a bit lazy. If they kind of stay in bed too long, they kind of stay there. They're not really encouraged to get out of bed. They're kind of sucked in a little bit to that. So for Kaphas, it's really recommended to have a really good routine, to wake up usually before the sunrise. You get a lot of energy from waking up before the sunrise, kind of engaging in a lot of competitive sport, being active, being generally quite active. Whereas for Vatas, it's kind of the opposite. They're supposed to, because their lifestyle is very active, to balance that, they tend to be recommended to have kind of cooling, calming atmospheres. So, you know, spa days and, you know, meditation and hatha yoga and things like that, good for Vatas. So moving on to the Pittas actually. So actually you can tell I'm Vata because Vatas tend to talk with their hands a lot and talk very fast. I'm always doing this, knocking things over, and can be a bit clumsy. So that's my Vata characteristic. Pittas are represented by fire. So the Pitta dosha is very fiery. They're very go-getting, they're very focused, they're very good decision makers. They're very focused, and they're good like managers and entrepreneurs and things like that. When out of balance, Pittas can get a little bit hot-headed, a bit hot-tempered, a bit frustrated, angry.
You're describing you or me?
At different times in the year, we can have really different characteristics, because you imagine that we are these blend of elements, and then our external elements are changing our constitution throughout the seasons. For each dosha type, there is different skin type. So you have, for the Vatas, you have their dry skins because they're air dominant. So we have our radiance range, which is really well suited to them. For the Kaphas, they tend to be quite oily skinned and acne prone. So Kaphas, because they are earth and water, when that comes together, that can get a bit congested. And soily, if you imagine water and earth coming together, kind of soily and congested, that's what happens to Kapha skin. So we've got a purifying range for the Kapha skin types. And then for the Pitta types, so Pittas, because they're represented by fire, quite fiery characters, they tend to have quite sensitive skin. So they can suffer from, eczema or rosacea. They burn very easily, so any kind of sensitivity on the skin they can suffer from. So we have our soothing range for them.
Oh, fantastic.